Hello, everybody. Welcome in the NBA Draft Special. I am the big man on campus, as always, joined here. New co-host, Jordan Sharp. Jordan's an SBR contributor. He's going to join me today. We're going to talk a little NBA draft. Jordan, the night is upon us. Tomorrow night, looking forward to it. A lot of things going on in the NBA right now as far as trades. I haven't seen many trades like this right before a draft like we've seen. This is kind of new to me, but I got to ask you, how you doing? Excited for the draft?
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's great to join you here today. The draft and the NBA offseason in general, I think, is one of the best off seasons in sports, and the draft is obviously the kickoff of that. And yeah, you're right. It's been a pretty crazy last 24, 48 hours in the NBA, and it's probably going to get crazier. And unfortunately for us, that means that things are a little bit more unpredictable. But at the same time, if you kind of keep up on the rumors and everything, there are a few things that I think we could take advantage of here. And I think we're going to talk plenty about that here upcoming, man. But yeah, it's really exciting, especially in a year like this, and even leading off into what next year is going to be like with free agency, of another free agency boom. So yeah, it's a great year for the draft here. I think it's got a lot of hype.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I obviously, I know you're a big NBA guy. I center most of my capping around college sports. College basketball is really something that I'm big into, really enjoy it. And it's nice to see a lot of these guys getting their full due. I know coming into next year, you got a lot of good kids coming into college. Michael Porter Jr. obviously headlines that group. So let's get into Jordan, everything. We'll kind of, go over some of the things this morning that I see. I did a new top 10 this morning. I think we have to kind of pull back the onion and look at what these teams are really at this point last minute going to do here. We'll look at some props, obviously, from the sports books. Five Dimes does a great job of putting up a ton of props, and I'll offer a couple. I know Jordan will offer a couple. I know during the NFL draft, Jordan, I was big into some of the props. Did pretty well on the second day. Props can be really valuable if you do your homework.
Yeah. I love prop betting. It's one of my favorite parts of sports handicapping, just because I think there is a little bit more of an edge there for the player against the book. Obviously, most books, Five Dimes actually kind of being that one outlier on this, but most other books, they juice up a lot of their props, so that gives them a little bit more of an advantage. But I think it evens it out a little bit. But yeah, absolutely, here in the draft, other than this wild kind of unpredictability of kind of those middle of the lottery here right now that we could be seeing with some of these teams trying to trade up or down, I think there are some good props here from Five Dimes here. I know I've already released a couple, and Five Dimes even has better odds on one that I already released here, so that I'm sticking with after all these trades. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what you have to say on these, because you're, like you said, you're the college guy here.
Yeah, what I'm thinking, Jordan, is we'll go through the top 10, kind of my opinion, your opinion, look at some of the props in that group. And then, I have a couple late. Like I said, I'm big into small schools. Some of these young, these kids maybe will get drafted, maybe not. How many players from schools are going to be drafted? You look at the top 10, and obviously I think we both agree. Markelle Fultz goes number one to the Sixers. Being a Sixer fan, I couldn't be more elated at this happening. Obviously, this team has struggled for a lot of years finding a guard to play that position. I think Markelle Fultz is the best guard in this draft. He sets up long-term to be a good player for this team, years down the road. I mean, we haven't had a guard that can score, Jordan, since Allen Iverson, really. Yeah. I think you look at him, and I think it's unfair to relate him to James Harden, but I do see where we're going with that. I think, at any rate, I think you're going to get a little bit better defender than James Harden for sure here at number one. And number one, I think we can agree most of the time is fairly easy to predict. You look at Five Dimes, they're not even offering a prop at the number one pick anymore. So self-explanatory here, isn't it?
Yeah, foregone conclusion. Markelle Fultz goes to the Sixers. That's why they traded up to. That's why they traded up with the Celtics. There's no other explanation to that. When that happened, that was, I think, everyone's immediate reaction. As far as he looks as a prospect, he's big, and which is really good from a point guard standpoint here in today's NBA, because, like you said, you got to be able to play both ways. There's infinite amounts of high caliber, quick, big, strong point guards in the league right now. I think Markelle Fultz will eventually turn into somewhere in that spectrum. Whether or not he's a star remains to be seen. I think you'll probably agree, and I think everyone else talks about, though, he's the one guy in this draft that you seem to see the star qualities in more so than anybody else. That's why he's going to go number one.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people discussing his college career and his short, kind of basketball playing at a high level. And you're right, it's not very much there. But I think one thing we have to basically assume is Lorenzo Romar, this is what he does. He covets these one-year guys that really could care less about playing. We have to remember, you're basically being held hostage for a year and forced to play. Now, again, you're going to give it your all, but I think we started to see with Markelle Fultz, we're starting to see in college, people don't want to risk injuries. And if I'm Markelle Fultz, I get where he's coming from. It's similar to the NFL draft where Christian McCaffrey didn't want to play in bowl games. I get where they're coming from. They shouldn't be forced to play at any level. That's another conversation, though, to have. But yeah, Fultz
we can get way into the weeds with that one.
right. So I'm not going to even go down that avenue. But number 2, Lakers. We've seen a couple, obviously reports that Magic Johnson, maybe might do something here. I'm not as high on Lonzo Ball as other people are. I think he's going to struggle in the NBA with that shot that he has. I know it's something that he's been able to do for a long time, but we don't really see a lot of weird deliveries like this. I know Kevin Martin for a lot of years made a living off of weird deliveries, and we've seen them from time to time, but I think they do end up going with Lonzo Ball. I think it's a good fit for them. I think it's if we saw anything yesterday, which I got to be honest, the D'Angelo Russell trade didn't make a lot of sense for me, especially if you're going to take Lonzo Ball here. I think it'd be good pairing those two, similar to what you might have in Phoenix if they decide to go a certain way. I think Ball's the pick here. We can argue about Lonzo in the future, but I think he's the pick here at 2.
2 days ago, I probably could have made the argument to you that the Lakers were going to go a different way here just because that trade hadn't been made yet.
Right.
But now after that trade, it seems more realistic now that Magic Johnson and company are kind of thinking Lonzo Ball is the pick here. So I think you're right. I'm looking at 5 dimes and 6-1 on the over here. The only thing that I could think of, and I wrote about this a few days ago before the trade happened, and now I'm kind of pulling back from it, but De'Aaron Fox is really good, and I really like him as a prospect. I kind of interested to see what you have to say about him because I feel like that's where they would go if they don't pick Lonzo Ball. I don't see any. I think they got to pick a point guard now. So it's like the only other way. But now that D'Angelo Russell's gone, that seemed to be their signal that they're going to go Ball here. But I kind of want to see what your thoughts are, and maybe De'Aaron Fox being that sleeper kind of sneaky pick by Magic here and company.
Well, if you read into some of the interesting things going on, De'Aaron Fox's dad, and it looks like dads are warring here between these two. De'Aaron Fox's dad called out Lonzo Ball. Listen, if it's me making this pick here, I would take De'Aaron Fox if I'm the Lakers. I don't like Lonzo Ball. I don't think he's going to translate that well to the NBA. I think we saw that. I mean, you saw in that March Madness game, Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox made mincemeat of Lonzo Ball. And I think we have to point out the kind of the clown show that LeVar Ball is. I mean, we have to point that out.
Yeah.
If we've seen anything in sports, and again, I know it's not in professional sports a big deal, and we have to also point out he has 2 brothers that he'll be a little bit more concerned with because they have a lot more problems than Lonzo Ball does at a high-level basketball level. But, look, if it's me, Jordan, I would take De'Aaron Fox, and at 6-1, I would throw a little lunch money on that. You never know. I think you're dead right in saying that he's possibly more talented. I mean, I think he'll fit a little bit better there. Again, Jordan, I go back to why you trade D'Angelo Russell. I guess that's making a move. You get rid of cap space to go after a Paul George or something. But again, the point I have to make here is, and my co-host Donnie Wrightside on one of my shows made, you have to have some kind of core if you want to go after a high-level player. I mean, they don't have a core. I mean, you look at other than Julius Randle, there's nothing there that I'm really that obsessed with as far as the bigs are concerned. What are you going to get out of Brandon Ingram? You have Jordan Clarkson at your point guard. You have Lonzo Ball eventually, or De'Aaron Fox, or wherever you go, but you still don't have a 2 guard. I just don't really see the level or way they're going here. I didn't like the D'Angelo Russell move. I
think they're going to ship Jordan Clarkson out of town too. I think they're just really and they're going to find a way to. Sorry, my dog's barking here right now. They're going to find a way to get. I think they're going to find a way to get Luol Deng out of town too. I think they're just trying to shed money here at the point. But I want to go back real quick just because I think between De'Aaron Fox and Lonzo Ball, if you look at those two and you say, okay, what are their ceilings? What are these 2 guys at their peaks? Okay, so LeVar Ball says that Lonzo Ball can be Steph Curry. Let's just assume that for a second, that will happen. Let's say Lonzo Ball is up to all the hype and he turns into somewhere around Steph Curry with at dazzling potential. You look at De'Aaron Fox, his ceiling's probably John Wall. I mean, I hate to compare the two, but they're pretty similar. Both are lightning quick and both really can't shoot the ball that well coming out of college. But John Wall's learned how to shoot the ball pretty well. His 3-point game has evolved immensely over the last 5 or 6 years. If you compare the 2 ceilings, wouldn't you rather have John Wall without the LeVar Ball situation at hand right in your backyard if you're Los Angeles? I mean, there is a theory to that. I don't know if it's going to come through or not, but that's kind of where my thought process is with the whole thing.
No, you make a great point. I mean, again, we never know what these guys are going to kind of you get into and become, but I think the Lakers have bigger problems. I don't think one pick's going to fix this team anywhere close. But again, I think it's going to be Lonzo Ball. But I think you make a good point. At 6-1, I think it's worth a little bit of a little small bet. Maybe in thinking that they think De'Aaron Fox is the overall better player. 3 is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Jordan, the Celtics at number 3, obviously getting that pick from the Sixers, kind of flip flopping. And look, if you asked me last night where I thought they would go here, I would say Josh Jackson. If you asked me, at 2:00 in the morning where they would go, I would have said Josh Jackson. But now I'm starting to really believe that they're going to take Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum, yeah.
Man. I think he fits better with this group. I think, as far as from a shooting perspective, he's going to give you more. I've been on record as saying, Jordan, that I think Josh Jackson is going to be a very good player in this league. I think defensively, he's the best player in this draft. I think, to compare him to Kawhi Leonard's a little crazy, but I will say this. Coming out of San Diego State, Kawhi Leonard was Josh Jackson. He was young. He was kind of green behind the gills. He worked tirelessly on his shot. I think the one issue I have with Josh Jackson, he did not work out with the Celtics. To me, it's all about I'm really gambling on Josh Jackson as a person. He's a young kid. Will he give the same effort that Kawhi Leonard did? Will he be able to perfect it like that? At the end rate, Kawhi, he's a Andre Iguodala type of player. And I think Danny Ainge is kind of seeing that they need a wing player, a guy that can play defense a little bit, can shoot the basketball, can score. I think they go Jason Tatum here.
I love that in between kind of comparison. Like at worst, Josh Jackson's Andre Iguodala. At best, he's Kawhi Leonard. That's pretty accurate. Like I didn't see a lot of Josh Jackson. He's a year older than Jason Tatum, so I think that's where this kind of evens these two guys up. Because I've seen more of Tatum just because he's from St. Louis, and everybody watches a ton of Duke obviously all the time. But I mean, like these two guys, have a lot of different but really nice qualities about them, and I think that Tatum is going to be the guy here because, like you said, I think he fits in, but I think you're right. Josh Jackson has more upside here.
Yeah, he definitely does. To me, if I'm a team and a guy doesn't want to work out for me, why is that? I mean, why don't you want to work out for this team?
It's just like a strategic thing nowadays. It's become more and more prevalent, it seems like, don't you think?
Yeah,
like guys are just avoiding like workouts for just like specific reasons.
But I think But I think it's underlying. It shows me that Josh Jackson isn't going to do whatever it takes to be a winner. And I think if that's Kawhi Leonard, he'll work out. He'll work out for anyone. It's similar to me in this business. People say to me all the time, "Well, you do a ton of shows at SBR. You do a ton." I say, "Yeah, because I want to work harder than everyone else." I think when you work harder than everyone else, that will replace talent or stuff. You work hard and show people that, it means you care. And that's concerning to me. And I think it's going to hurt Josh Jackson as far as this pick. I think Jason Tatum fits better. And like I said, 6 hours ago, may not have said this, but all I'm seeing, I think Jason Tatum goes here. As far as his prop, under 4.5, minus 270, not a ton of value there. But as the day goes on, that looks more and more like it's going to come in. But just a little too high for me. I'm actually one, Jordan, I don't know about you, but I am one to lay a little bit more juice. I would never lay 270 in baseball or something like that. But, you get a lot of leverage in props where they really just kind of staring you in the face.
The highest juice I've gone this season, I think, is minus 225 on Daniel Murphy to record a hit. Maybe it was minus 250. I hit that, by the way. I'm definitely not in a draft prop like this.
But you would agree that they're a little bit more they normally will come out. It's similar. I think the highest juice I laid this year was the Warriors in the NBA Finals, which I think from an EV perspective, I mean, that was just a bet you had to make. But, this is a little high. You look at 5, I think the Suns are really going to luck out here if they do take Lonzo Ball, the Lakers, because I think the pick here would be De'Aaron Fox. I think you pair him with Devin Booker, and you have a nice you have a nice group there for a lot of years. 2 young players, 2 Kentucky guys. I think at any rate, it's kind of like the Sixers. If they didn't trade for Fultz, they would have got Jackson. I think it would have worked. If Lonzo Ball goes 2, I think at 4 they go De'Aaron Fox. I think it's very much a win-win for them.
I completely agree, because also I think Eric Bledsoe is probably on the move, at least if not soon, sometime within this year and next year's draft. I think the Suns are obviously know they're still in rebuilding mode, and they know they have an asset in Eric Bledsoe that they need to get something for while they're still going to be bad for the next couple of years. Right. And De'Aaron Fox, I think you're right. Him and Booker is a pretty intriguing they're a group of wildcats there in the desert. I am quite intrigued by that. And I wrote about kind of similar things in the article I wrote a couple days ago on this prop.
And this is kind of where we're starting to see some value. I mean, you look at 5 dimes currently under 4.5 at plus 135. I think that's a really good bet. I really do. Yeah. I think it's either 2, which is probably not going to happen, or 4. I just don't see them passing on De'Aaron Fox, the Suns. I don't think they can do it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that's the first official pick I'm going to recommend. Why is that at plus 135?
I don't know, because as I said, this is one of the picks I wrote up 2 days ago, and I think I got even money on it. So yeah, I don't know if somebody knows something, or if this is just the one that's like, you're right. We see the value here. There, like De'Aaron Fox, we know is a very talented player, and you're right. He's got 2 teams right there at 2 and 4 that could very easily say, hey, yeah, we're going to take you right here. We're going to take that and pass on maybe a Josh Jackson, or maybe even Alonzo Ball if he slips down that far and doesn't get taken either 2nd or 4th. Because I don't think the Suns are going to take Ball. I think they'd take Fox over him, just because I think he fits their style a little bit better. And so if the Lakers pass on him, I mean, could the story on Thursday be the falling of Lonzo Ball, and how many storylines that's going to generate, and how many angry LeVar Ball tweets there are going to be? Like this could turn into a very, very crazy night just because of the balls.
I guess I just can't see it happening. I mean, there's a lot of teams that need guards.
Early that's on. The big thing. And a lot of point guards in this draft.
Right. And he could, other than Markelle Fultz, he's the best guard in this draft, many would say. So, yeah, I don't know that happened, but it would be a great kind of cliffhanger, because, LeVar is going to be in Brooklyn. I mean, they're going to have the camera all over him. 5 is interesting. I can see the Kings moving this pick, or trying to get, kind of package something maybe to get another pick. I don't know. But I think if they stick to where they're going, I think they have to go. I think Josh Jackson will be staring you in the face. I mean, if you can get him on that 3 line, I mean, what are they going to do with, Tyreek Evans and Rudy? That's the question, Jordan. I think it's got to be Josh Jackson. He's going to be the best player on the board at this position. Do you have any qualms about that?
No, I think you're right, because they need to bring in both a high upside and a pretty high floor guy, and you're right. If it goes in the order we think we're kind of looking at here, he is the best guy available. I'm going to throw like a crazy monkey wrench scenario into this whole thing, though. Do you trust the Kings to make the right move here, though? Is that the real question? Okay,
so they
never make the right move. So let's just say the Lakers take De'Aaron Fox in number 2, and let's say Philadelphia goes with, Boston goes with a guy like Jason Tatum. So you have 4. You have both Lonzo Ball and Josh Jackson still sitting there at 4. Do you think the Kings would trade up just to get one of those guys, even though they will, both of them seem to be kind of pretty good prospects, and you get the better, you just sit there in the same spot and get one or the other, or do we not trust them to say, oh, hey, Phoenix, we'll give you next year's first-round pick, or something just not even worth moving up one spot to get Lonzo Ball or something like that, so he can go to Sacramento.
And then it'll fail considerably.
And it'll fail, absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking of like nuclear scenarios here for the Kings, because that's the Kings, and I feel like that's it right there, that they trade up one spot for no reason.
And again, I mean, look, I'll admit, I think they have to hit a home run at some point and get a guard. I mean, Darren Collison and Ty Lawson are not.
He's not the answer. They need a guard more than they need a wing.
And Buddy Hield at this point, I've made it clear I'm a big Buddy Hield guy. I mean, they have plenty of 2s. They need a 1 particularly, but I don't think they're going to have that option. I think they have to take Josh Jackson at the 3 and hope that him and Willie Cauley-Stein can be and then Scala Brissier at the 4. Hopefully that can kind of translate long term. But the Kings aren't winning anything, so I don't think it matters too much. But from this perspective, I think it's Josh Jackson here. We'll go through 4 more, just finish up the top 10, and then we'll throw in a couple, and then we'll be wrapping it up. 6, the Orlando Magic. They obviously have some changes in the front office there. Look, I think this is a little bit more of a rebuild. You look at this team, I actually am still blown away that the Sixers gave up on Nick Vucevic the way they did very early. Nick Vucevic has turned into a pretty good player in this league. I think they have some good pieces, but look, I think at this point you probably have to go and take John Isaac out of Florida State. John Isaac's a guy that's a big hulking kid. I mean, he's got to obviously hit the weight room a little bit, but I think from a wing perspective, he's one of the better players in this draft. A lot of, electric player, kind of reminds you of, kind of Aaron Gordon a little bit in a weird way. I know he's not as big, but I think if you pair him at that 3, I mean, are you sold on Terrence Ross? Is Terrence Ross a starter in this league?
He has changed my mind a little bit on him after he got traded.
But money-wise, I guess he is. But good. Again, I could see them going a guard here. I know they gave Evan Fournier a ton of money. I do like Elfrid Payton, but, I could see Dennis Smith here or Malik Monk. I think that's going to stay right in the face. But I'll go John Isaac. I don't really know what the Magic are going to do.
I like John Isaac as a prospect. I don't know if the Magic are going to – I just think that with – Vucevic, but what's the kid? I can't. I'm blanking on his name. Their power forward. That they obviously traded Ibaka to get him more minutes. Young guy, dunk contest. You remember his name?
Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon. Thank you very much. I don't know what they seem to not know what position he is. I think he's a power forward. I think everybody knows that. But so I think you're right. Jonathan Isaacs would fit in there nicely. But I want to throw another monkey wrench in this situation here. Do you think Lauri Markkanen is a potential here for the Magic? They seem to have a gap a little bit here at power forward. If they think Gordon is a 3, you think maybe they have some looming Ryan Anderson dreams of Lauri Markkanen here, and think that he could come in and be that guy for them?
I do. I definitely think he's going to shoot up a little bit. I had him around the 8, 9, 10 range, but I could see him going 6 or 7. That's the question. I mean, he is only a freshman, but I think from a standpoint of, I've said this before, he reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki as kind of the player that he is. He does kind of also remind me of that Ryan Anderson. I think 6 is a little too rich for him. The reason I like Isaac here is not only it makes sense to me, but you look at the books here. I mean, this is under 6.5 minus 265. I think if he's going to go at under 6.5, it's right here. But you do make an interesting point about Markkanen. I just think he's pegged somewhere else, and I'm going to get into here in a minute.
I think Isaac is definitely the better player for sure. That much is sure. So if the Magic do take best player available, which I mean is the strategy I think I would follow as an NBA GM. Especially this high in the draft. I don't know why some teams draft for need when they're in the top 5, 6, 7, even in the lottery most of the times instead of taking best player available. So if you're right, if it does full out like the book's saying, like 5 times suggesting here, I think you're right. Isaac is the pick.
This is an interesting team coming up. Minnesota Timberwolves at 7, because I want to throw something out to you. Tom Thibodeau loves Jimmy Butler. We know that. Could they package Chris Dunn and someone else to Chicago maybe? Can they get in on this? Because Minnesota, good young team, nice little base there. Obviously you have Karl-Anthony Towns, who has become a really fantastic big in this league. You still have Ricky Rubio for the time being. You can draft someone here. What do you think that could be possible, Thibodeau, maybe going after his boy Jimmy Butler?
If Zach LaVine didn't tear his ACL, I think the deal would have already been done, to tell you the truth. And I think it would have been him in there instead of Chris Dunn. But because I don't think the Bulls or most teams, I don't think we've seen enough Chris Dunn for anybody to be sold on him yet in the NBA. So I don't think they would accept Chris Dunn as a centerpiece. I think they would want somebody a little bit more established. But I think this is where things could go very much off the rail here, and it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think everybody else keeps their pick from here on out, but this is where trades could happen. Either the Timberwolves moving back and trading with the Bulls for a Jimmy Butler like that, or something else coming up of this. But
I think from a standpoint of the pick, though, I think Malik Monk goes here. I think. Again, Zach LaVine's been an interesting player to me because I feel like he's only made his name off dunking. I don't know that he does anything else really that well. I think it's kind of time to maybe move on from that. Bring in, you put Chris Dunn in there. Obviously, if he transitions into what we think he's going to do, you have Malik Monk and Chris Dunn. You have Karl-Anthony Towns. I could see Markkanen going here. I think if you pair him with Karl-Anthony Towns, I think you have a really good, both wings there. But Andrew Wiggins obviously has come on. I think it's Malik Monk here. I think he fits here at 7 to pair him with Chris Dunn kind of in the future. But don't be surprised if they're involved in a trade. You look at Malik Monk, under 7.5 at plus 140. I think another valuable player. You're getting some money back on this prop. I think this makes sense, Malik Monk here at 7.
They are going to go, I think, a guard here, and with, like I said, with like we talked about, with the richness of point guards in this draft, it would make sense because Monk is the kind of that next tier guy that's up there at 7. So yeah, I could get behind that. I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger myself, but I'm not gonna say naysay on it. Absolutely not.
Book's fairly concerned and confused on what they're going to do here. I don't think anyone knows. I think it's either Monk or Markkinen here. You look at the juice, Markkinen 155, Monk at -180. So I think they're leaning Monk here. But listen, you can really kind of look. I don't think John Isaac is any value at -265. But when you're getting into this, if you believe Monk is the player, which I believe it is, I think at +140, I think under 7.5 is to play here. I really do. Couple more here. We'll go to 8, and the New York Knicks, who we could argue is the worst run organization in sports, maybe other than, I mean, the Phillies are a pretty badly run organization.
Oh, the Kings. We've already talked about the Kings. Too. The Kings are way worse than the Knicks. I mean, but yeah, they're
but you look at ownership. I would much rather have their ownership over.
If you're judging by ownership, then yes, we have an argument. Yes, no one likes Jimmy Dolan.
As far as 8 for the Knicks here, obviously you need to go guard here. I think that's clearly a shooter's important. And I might be a little bullish here. This Nicolaina from France, Frank Nicolaina, I mean, very good defender, good shooter. I'm concerned. He's either Smith Jr. here or Nicolaina. Nicolaina might be a little too high here at 8. I think you have to go and make the safe pick and take, you take Dennis Smith. I don't really get involved much in what the Knicks do. They're seemingly a team that screws things up as well, kind of like the Kings. I think it's Dennis Smith here, but I'm pretty much unknown at what the Knicks are going to do.
Yeah, another team needs a guard, though. I mean, you're at least your theory here is right on point. I mean, you can't really argue with that. Like, it really depends on, like, I think what the Wolves do and if they keep their pick. And I also think that, the Lauri Markkanen, if he's still there here, I think we've heard rumblings of Phil Jackson, potentially trading Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis still being unhappy, hasn't talked to the organization since the season ended, didn't go to his exit interview. I mean, like, we're entering uncharted waters here. I don't know if the Knicks would actually pull the trigger on Kristaps Porzingis. I think more realistically, I don't think there are teams out there that are going to pay the price tag. So yes, I think Smith Jr. is like you said, that we're talking tiers of point guards here. He's kind of like that next guy if Monk does go right ahead of him. So yeah, I think once again you're right on point here.
Yeah, Dennis Smith, just a guy that I think is a pretty safe pick. I know he only, he's only a freshman. He only kind of had 1 year at NC State, but he's a, fast kid, really kind of a guy that I think will fit with the Knicks. I think 9, I think it's a slam dunk. And I think Nicolaina at under 9.5, as far as throughout the draft, I think is a good spot for him. I think 9 is where he goes.
Yeah, because Dallas. Yeah, I was just getting ready to say.
You look at their experience with international players, seemingly. If you did homework on them, Chad Ford reported that his coach in Strasbourg in France is actually going to join them in the summer league. I think Mark Cuban goes with the pick here and takes Nicolaina. He's a guy that, if you look at tape, you look at some of his particulars, very good defender, good shooter, just an overall guy that's really kind of rocketed up the draft boards. I think 9 is a perfect pick for Dallas here with Nicolaina.
I just 5 Dimes just logged me out. What's the price on
under 9.5? A little juice on 175.
I'm back. 175, okay, and 135 if he goes 10th or higher. Yeah,
I don't see if it's not the Knicks, which I don't think it will be. I think
it's got to be the Mavs. Yeah,
I think I mean, why else do you trade? Why else do you get his coach? I mean, what's the reasoning there?
True. Yeah, the juice is a little bit off-putting, but yeah, I think it's
off-putting, Jordan. You're right, but there's no other reason you hire that coach. There's none. I mean, he's either going to go before 9 or at 9. That's, I think, the writing on the wall. And that's why I think, if, like in any sports betting, if you do some homework, you can really dig for information. You can find that stuff. Look, let's say if you knew Matt Harvey and Adriana Lima broke up Friday, you knew he pitched Friday night. You imagine the money you could have made. I mean, amazing.
Right.
I think it's Nicolaina here. 175, though, is a little heavy, but I think in draft sometimes you have to kind of swallow it and take it. Number 10, we're back to the Sacramento Kings, who have 2 picks. How can they screw this up, right? I mean, it's a perfect situation. How can they screw it up? Markkanen's still on the board here. I think you have to go with him here. I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah. It's just they're so stacked with, like, like guys like that right now, I feel like that this is where they would reach, like this is where the Kings would, maybe they don't screw up their first pick, like they're definitely going to screw up this one and reach on somebody, and they're not going to take the best player available. And it's just like that's why I think we get so far down in the lottery that things become more unpredictable the higher number you get, so like we're at 10 here and we have the Sacramento Kings. It's just, I can't trust them to make the right decision again. Like, because you're right that if Markkanen's still there, he's the play. I don't think he falls out. I don't think he's ever going to fall out of the top 10 regardless here. So that would obviously be where they go. But yeah. Can you trust the Kings? I don't know.
Right. And I'm not going to really
Labrise or whatever his name is already. So I mean, they kind of have some pieces there at the front court that they like.
But if you can get Josh Jackson, you pair him with Markkanen, you already have, a Willie Cauley-Stein down there at center. I mean, you have Buddy Hield. It's starting to open up a little bit for the Kings, but they're an organization that's
got some pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. Drew, Jordan, let's get into some of the other props, some of the props that I think you really can make some money on as far as amount of players from teams, things like that. A couple early that I'm looking at Luke Kennard over 12.5. I think Luke Kennard flew up the draft boards a little bit prematurely. I love Kennard as a shooter. I think he's a guy that will be drafted in the top 15. I think 12, though, is a little rich. I see him going 14 to the Miami Heat. I think that could be a landing spot for him. They obviously need a guy that can shoot a little bit. And look, I could see them going after a big, though. But he's been a good name. He's been a guy as far as the shooter's concerned. He's a piece that you can kind of pair with Dion Waiters and what they have there. I think 12 is just a little too rich for him. I could see him maybe going to Detroit, but I think they kind of should address maybe Zach Collins at that position. I think Kennard 12.5 is a little too high. I'll go over 12.5 for Luke Kennard.
That's plus 170 too. That's pretty. That's a pretty nice. That's a pretty nice piece of pie there. I think you're right, because with all the guards and wings in this draft, like you're right. He shot up, and then everybody kind of realized like, oh, we kind of want to take some younger guys that are more athletic and bigger and longer and that can then hopefully turn into shooters, not just a guy who can shoot. So it's like I think that's probably where that logic comes in.
And I look at the picks we've made. I mean, obviously, I think Charlotte goes Donovan Mitchell. I think he's the pick there. I think he's a guy that can defend. One of the better guards. You pair him with Kemba Walker. He's an athletic kid from Louisville, very versatile and a lot of upside there. I think they take him 12. I could see them going Kennard here, but I think Collins has kind of shot up. I think he has a lot of potential. If you could kind of groom him the right way, you pair him with some of the bigs they have there. Stan Van Gundy, I think, will do a nice job with him. I don't see Denver taking him, so I just don't see the spot for him. I don't see Luke Kennard as a top 12 pick. I just don't. I know he shot up, but he was a 20 kind of pick for me. He is shot up to like the 15 range, but I don't see him as a top 12 pick. So plus 170, I think there's a lot of value there. I'm going to get into three teams, Jordan, of as far as how many players will be drafted. The first one, I'm going to go Duke under 3.5 in the first round. I know it's 155, a little high, but I just don't see a scenario where Frank Jackson gets taken in the first round. I mean, Kennard, Giles, and Tatum are locks, I would imagine, but I just don't see 4. I don't see anyone that Frank Jackson is not a number 1 round player for me. These school props like intrigue me, but I can't pull the trigger on them because I just don't follow college basketball enough to kind of like break that down, So sure. I can't really chime in on this. I do want to give you one though that I released earlier, and it kind of has, I think, lost a little muster. So I want you to like try to pet me back up for it. So I got Caleb Swanigan under 32.5. And which means that he would obviously have to go in the first round or the first 2 picks of the second round. Now that the Dwight Howard trade has been thrown in and the Hawks don't have that 31st pick, I feel like there's only a couple spots for him for this to cash, and it's the end of the first round with Utah and San Antonio, because they could both really use a big guy. I know Pau Gasol is probably going to re-sign, but looks David Lee opt out for the Spurs. The Jazz, Derek Favors can't stay healthy. They have a gap in their power forward, in their big men. Outside of Rudy Gobert, they really don't have anybody. And obviously Swanigan is not a top tier talent in this draft. I know that, but he's got a lot of skills that are, I think, undervalued. And I think that's a team at the end of the first round, right at the beginning of the second round, could see that and pick him if he's still available. I think under 32.5 at minus 105 is still there, even though the Hawks have traded out of that 31st spot. Yeah, I got to be honest, Jordan. I don't agree with that. I think I just don't know that his game really translates to the league. I think
Yeah.
he's a guy that, if you look at towards the end of the first round, I mean, obviously, you look at the guys with bigger potential, guys like Ivan Rabb from Cal, some of these international kids, Isaiah Hartenstein from Germany,
Yeah.
Bam Adebayo, people like that. Even, a guy like Jonah Bolden from Australia who's really shooting up the draft boards. I think he's more or less in the 35 to 40 range. I still think I would take Alec Peters over him from Valparaiso. I just think his specific skill set needs to be groomed by a certain team. Maybe like a Charlotte or a Jazz or something. But I think that's a little too rich for Swanigan personally.
Yeah,
But
Charlotte now owns that 31st pick, so I mean, I guess if that
then,
gives me a little bit of hope. But yeah,
and that's your hope. That
yeah.
it's funny you said I actually had him going around maybe to a Charlotte. I think that might be a fit there, but you're really only getting it down to one pick. What'd you say the line was on that?
It's minus 105, so it's close to even.
Yeah. Money. If I'm getting plus 130, I would pull the trigger.
Yeah,
but there's just not a ton of value. It's a coin flip. You're dealing with literally one team there. As far as a couple others, I am going to recommend Gonzaga over 1.5. I really think you're coin flipping on will Nigel Williams-Goss get drafted, and I got to tell you, I think he's going to get drafted. I think he's very much NBA ready. I think if you look at the kind of player he is, he's a good shooter. He will work on that a little bit. He's 6'4", which as a guard is good size, comes from a strong family background. He's a kid that can rebound as well. Doesn't need to get a little faster, but I do lump him into kind of the Earl Watson, Matthew Dellavedova type of player. Not incredibly fast, but I think he's a guy that will be a good NBA player for a lot of years, a role player. I think in this draft, he makes better sense than some of these guys kind of late in the draft. And I think at over 1.5, it makes sense. I just don't see a situation where he doesn't get drafted. I would much rather take a shot on him than I would with a Ben Moore or Cameron Oliver, someone like that. It could be really late. I mean, he could be drafted at like one of the last picks in the draft. I just think he's a guy that can be a good backup in this league. He's NBA ready. He's an older kid. I mean, he's a junior. He played a lot of years in college. I think at over 1.5, that makes a little bit of sense. One other one. Over 2.5 Oregon players get drafted. I think Dylan Brooks and Jordan Bell are locks. I also think Tyler Dorsey's a kid that gets drafted in this group. I think we saw, he's a guy that can handle the basketball, pretty good scorer, good crafty player. Maybe goes to like maybe like a Houston or someone like that. Maybe he can kind of fit in with that group. Fast kid. I just think we see 2.5. We see a couple Oregon players go here. I think there's 3 people that are draftable, meaning the other 2 are locks. I think Dorsey gets thrown in there. So, there's some late value in this draft, Jordan. Obviously, with if you kind of do some of the research on draft, kind of some of these kids, I think you can definitely make a ton of money. I'll just kind of recap. Fox under 4.5 at plus 135. I do like Malik Monk at under 7.5. Some of those like middle lottery picks are fun. Nidaklina under 9.5, Kennard over 12.5, and then Duke under 3.5 in the first round, Gonzaga over 1.5 in the draft, and Oregon over 2.5. Any final ones from you, Jordan?
Yeah, I do have one more I want to ask you about. A recap mine. I'm also on Fox. I'm under 4.5. So if you're going to pick one out of all these things we just mentioned, that is definitely the one. I think we can agree on that. And then under 32.5 for Swanigan. I do want to know one more thought on your guy. Like you just mentioned, the late value. I got to know where you think Sindarius Thornwell over under 38.5.
Well,
this is the last one that's kind of intriguing because there's a lot of juice on the over in this one. So if he does go in kind of those first few picks of the second round, there's over 2-to-1 money to be made.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that came on obviously really strong last year. He came on, obviously in the tournament very strong. I mean, we can't, overall, I mean, he was one of the better players we saw. He really kind of carried his team. What do you have the number at?
The under 38.5 is plus 220.
I don't know. I mean, I still like certain guys better than him.
It's a tough number. It really 38.5 is it's the reason it's intriguing. Obviously, is the price more so than that 38.5 number. But I think it's it's a little too intriguing. I don't know to pass up. I'm leaning towards it, but I don't think I'm not going to lock it in.
I think he's a guy that's in the 40s, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'd much rather take Jordan Bell. I'd much rather have Alec Peters. Wesley Awundu is a guy that I like over him. Even your boy Swanigan. Where does he fit in the NBA? What's his position in the NBA?
True. Yeah.
He's kind of a tweener kind of player. I like Sterling Brown at SMU over Sedarius Thermal. I just am kind of concerned with the fact that he came on so late. I mean, he was a very good college player, but overall, he did kind of come into prominence very late in his career. Yeah, I think he's in the 40s. I think 38.5 is a little too rich for me.
All right, I'll lay off then. That's good advice. I'll take it.
Thank you, sir. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, we've lived and died with these players for a long time. I know I have, particularly in college. One name that I'm going to throw out. I'm very intrigued by Justin Patton in this draft, a center out of Creighton. A kid's huge. Had a really good season for Greg McDermott's team. I'm really excited about where he's going to go. I think long-term he's going to be a really good player in this draft. A kid with a lot of size, nice wingspan, kind of a skinny kid, needs to put on some weight, but I'm excited about him going forward. Jordan, I want to thank you. Great information. Obviously, you're a good NBA guy. You're always kind of a guy that I look to on SBR when I'm looking for videos on NBA. You are a guy that I'm definitely interested in hearing his opinion on. Kind of give a plug for what you're doing here at SBR.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks. I appreciate the follow. I got right now, since the summer, all we got is the MLB prop betting picks. I was on an incredible run up until this past Monday. I struck out on a couple, but we're still up on the year 8-6 plus almost 2 units. So we've just been doing it for a couple weeks. So keep a follow out for that. Do a lot of NBA features that come out every sporadically, once a week, once every other week on a schedule. Those kind of offset like that. Also, we'll of course be starting back up football props. And basketball will be soon to follow because the NBA offseason is a complete blur. We might even try to do some summer league stuff. I don't know. We'll have to talk to my girl Deb and my guy Zach here on that one too. But yeah, lots of stuff, exciting stuff from me coming out this summer.
Lot to do, Jordan. Obviously, you have summer league, you have NBA down the road, you have college football, NFL, all sorts of stuff going on. SBR is the place to do it. Head on over to SBR Picks, SBR Odds. Lot of things at SBR to be excited about. I am the big man on campus. He's Jordan Sharp. Hope you enjoyed the NBA draft breakdown. We're looking forward to Thursday. Lot to do, a lot of interesting things. Let's hope we don't hear Lonzo Ball and LeVar Ball crying all night. Jordan, thank you so much. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Good luck all.
See ya.